Hi, yes, welcome to your 2026 horoscope. My name is Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and in this video, I will be going over all of the major transits you will be navigating the year of 2026. We are entering the year of massive change. And so in this video, we will cover all of the Mercury retrogrades, the eclipses, the nodes entering Leo and Aquarius, the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries energy, Jupiter entering Leo, Uranus entering Gemini, and the Venus retrograde at the end of the year. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you align with my energy and enjoy my content. So let's start off with the Mercury retrogrades. And I also, too, just want to note when we're going through these horoscopes, just make note of your own birth chart and your own personal planets and points. And if you have any personal planets or points around the degree points we are discussing in this horoscope, then you will know that that energy is working with you more personally. Okay, so the 2026 Mercury retrogrades are all in water signs this year, meaning that these Mercury retrogrades are working with us on a very deep, emotional, psychological, and spiritual level. The first Mercury retrograde of the year is in Pisces. Mercury will station retrograde February 25th or 26th at, depending on your time zone, because where I'm at, it's literally midnight. And so if you're like an hour ahead or an hour behind, that's going to make a difference. But the 25th or 26th of February, Mercury will station retrograde at 22 degrees of Pisces and then station direct March 20th at 8 degrees of Pisces. The second retrograde, Mercury retrograde of the year, is going to be in Cancer from June 29th to July 23rd. Mercury will station retrograde at 26 degrees of Cancer and then move back and station direct at 16 degrees of Cancer. And then the final Mercury retrograde of the year is in Scorpio. And this is going to be from October 24th to November 13th. Mercury will station retrograde at 20 degrees of Scorpio and will station direct at 5 degrees of Scorpio. So let's take a look at how this is showing up in your chart. So that first Mercury retrograde in Pisces is taking place in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions. So there may be something that you are rethinking or having to reevaluate around your finances. There may be something that you're having to address or something that is showing up for you to reevaluate when it has to do with your finances or the way that you make money or your anything around your material possessions. The second house also rules your personal values and what you need on a deep level to feel safe and secure. So all of those themes and topics can be front and center at the time of the Mercury retrograde. There can definitely be a reevaluation of those themes and topics or something coming up for review. And I will just say that you always want to try to not sign any important documents during a Mercury retrograde. And I'm saying that because it's in your second house. So there may be like just something, I'm sure for some of you, this can show up in many ways, but there's like let's say the bank you're getting doing something with the bank or whatever, try to sign after Mercury stations or before because there usually is something that's unclear or that you're not quite understanding or you're not seeing, and then it can cause some like hurdles and delays later on. So just be mindful of that if it does show up. Now, the second Mercury retrograde is in Cancer in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. And so there's something that you're rethinking and reevaluating when it has to do with your routine, your day-to-day routine, whether it's nutrition habits, your health, your workout schedule. The sixth house also has to do with pets. So you may be having to revisit something with pets or address something with pets. The sixth house also represents the labor that you put into your work. So your career and your job is in the 10th house, but the labor that you do on a day-to-day basis at your career is in the sixth. So there's something that you are reevaluating around possibly the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Then the final Mercury retrograde is in your 10th house of career and public reputation and what you are known for out in the world. So again, it's kind of tied into like the Mercury retrograde that's in year 6, where there's something you're kind of revisiting and reevaluating around your career, having to address, whether it's like a job placement, job position, or just something you're having to address that is has to do with your career within your career. Okay, let's take a look at the eclipse dates. So, 2026, the eclipse dates are first eclipse is February 17th, and we're having that eclipse, that solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees. So, again, you want to check your ascendant degree point to see if you have your ascendant around 28 degrees. Ye Aquarius and Leo, so we're having the nodes enter Aquarius and Leo this year. So we've been going through massive changes in the Virgo Pisces areas of our life. And this year, that starts to shift into new areas of our life. And for you, it's your first and your seventh house. And so there's very much going to be things brought to the surface about how you connect within relationships, you and all of your close one-on-one partnerships, business partnerships, marriage, personal close connections, all up for review and change over the next 2 years. You really want to pay attention to what is showing up at the time of this eclipse because this can give you a heads up of what that 2 year change is going to look like. The next eclipse of the year is March 3rd. That will be our total lunar eclipse in Virgo at 12 degrees. So, again, whatever change you've been navigating in this area of life since really the end of 2024, there's just more of that coming in. I always look at these eclipses and nodal journeys as stories kind of playing out. And every time we have an eclipse, there's like new energy, new experience, new dynamics to that story coming in, new changes, new massive hurdles and upheavals. And with eclipses and the nodes, like this sometimes feels like it's completely out of our control. Our second set of eclipses are in August. The first one's at August 12th, which will be our total solar eclipse in Leo at 20 degrees. Again, well, we're going to get into that in the next slide, but you're going to want to pay attention to what is showing up at this time because that's going to show you again what this change is going to look like in this area of life. And then our final eclipse in Pisces, August 28th, will be at 4 degrees of Pisces. This is going to be our lunar eclipse. And this is not going to be the final eclipse in Virgo and Pisces, but it will be the final eclipse in Pisces. It's not completely closing out this chapter of change in these areas of life because we will have one more eclipse in Virgo once we get into 2027. However, by this point, we will start to feel like this area of life is closing out, completing. The changes that have taken place are starting to settle, and there's a better understanding developing in those areas of life from everything that had taken place and changed over the last couple years. Okay, so we have the nodes entering Leo and Aquarius July 26th, 2026, and the nodes will be there until March 26th, 2028. You've had the nodes in your second and eighth house since January 2025, the North Node in Pisces in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions, and the South Node in your eighth house of your partner's finances, debt, taxes, inheritance, psychological healing, and transformation. Those are all eighth house themes and topics. So these areas of life have been going through change. You may have even found it started at the end of 2024. Um, and so the North Node really indicates a new direction, something new that you were approaching around your finances, and even personal values are in that second house. But the North Node represents something new, a new direction that we're moving into or feeling pulled towards. And the South Node represents something we are moving away from, or it can represent um, a releasing and letting go of something or something coming back from the past. And so there's just may have been a lot coming to the surface around money, around finances, around debt, around your partner's finances, around psychological healing and transformation, around the eighth house also rules death. The eighth house rules intimacy, your connection to your partner around intimacy. So those may all have been kind of up for review and change the last year and a half or so. And again, you still will have some change in this area. We're not done completely with this. Even once the nodes enter Leo and Aquarius in July, there still is a wrapping up of the change that has taken place in this area of life. So just keep that in mind as well. So then we have the North Node entering your first house and the South Node entering your seventh. The South Node in the seventh can indicate a relationship coming back from the past, somebody very karmic coming into your life, relationship dynamics completely changing. The North Node in the first house represents you moving into a new direction. There's something about you that is changing. That first house represents you, your character, your personality, your physical body, your appearance, your perception on the world, the mask that you wear to the world, how you want people to perceive you. There is something about you that is changing over the next couple of years. And again, um, watch to see what happens with that first eclipse in Aquarius, February 17th, because that can show you what this whole journey and chapter is going to look like. Either way, you, um, both you and Leo risings are in for massive changes because this is in your first and seventh house axes. So, your relationships, and how you connect within partnerships is all up for change. And it will begin this year and play out over the next 2 years. Just remember that when we have eclipses in the first and seventh, there can be something very karmic about the people that we meet or the people that come into our lives, the people that we start relationships with. There can be relationships ending, there can be relationships beginning. It looks different for all of us, but that's all on the table with this energy. Okay, let's get into the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries energy. So, Saturn is going to enter Aries February 13th, 2026, and will be there until April 13th, 2028. Neptune is going to be in Aries. Don't mind this. This is a typo. January 26, 2026 to 2038 or 2039. Well, not or 2030. Neptune is going to dip its toes in Taurus in 2038, but then make that final ingress in 2039. So you have Aries in your third house of your local community, your neighborhood, neighbors, siblings, cousins. The third house also rules vehicles, local travel, what you local commute, what you kind of do, the places you go daily when you're kind of explore, like the variety store you go to, the neighbors you talk to while you're taking your walk, like that's all represented in the third house. Also, your mindset. Communication, speaking, reading, writing, how you express yourself, that is all in the third house. So there's massive changes going on here. Not only do you have the nodes entering your first and your seventh, but the Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries is in that third house of self expression for you, Aquarius. So something tells me there's going to be a huge reset with the way you express yourself and how you approach the world and people and, relationship dynamics. That's all going through massive change. Now we want to remember that Saturn is the planet of rules, restriction, responsibility, maturity, accountability. So when we have Saturn transiting certain areas of our life, we can experience limitation in that area, delays. Let's say maybe you're trying to purchase a car or there's something going on with your car. Maybe your car needs to be fixed, and Saturn being in that third house can make that, you know, just take a bit longer or cause delays. That's kind of that Saturnian energy. And also, Saturn doesn't do the greatest in Aries. Saturn is at fall in Aries because Aries very much is this impatient, impulsive type of energy. And Saturn is very much about doing things in a timely fashion. Saturn literally rules time and karma and life lessons. And so we just want to keep that in mind. Now, Saturn rules your 12th house of things, people, places that are hidden. And so the 12th house ruler being well, some other things that are ruled that are reside in the 12th house is self-undoing or self-sabotaging behaviors, karma, past lives, where you can get in your own way. That's all kind of that 12th house energy. Also, hospitals, asylums, retreat centers, secrets, anything that is hidden. It is one of the hidden houses. A lot of energy becomes suppressed in the 12th house. Um, you can have issues with like depression or isolation or like being social or wanting to kind of um go out in the world in a sense, like even with self-expression, depending on what you have, what planets you have in that 12th house, energy just becomes suppressed. And so when the 12th house is activated or going through a bit of a challenge or under restriction of some type, we may feel either that sometimes we want to pull away from the world a little bit. Maybe you experience some challenge around self-expression. Um, yeah, so just keep that in mind that this Saturn Neptune transit is also going to kind of with Saturn in detriment in Aries and rolling that 12th can cause difficulties here. And then the third house is opposite the ninth. And so there is an opposition here. If you have planets here, then Saturn's going to be opposing that. And the ninth house rules higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, belief systems, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs. Also, the third and the ninth house axis is school, learning, education. Early education is in the third, higher education is in the ninth. So, if you're wanting to go back to school, it could just be a little bit more challenging, or you can experience delays. These are all things associated with that Saturn energy that we can experience while Saturn is transiting the zodiac. Now, with Neptune, when Neptune transits certain areas of our chart, Neptune makes things very confusing. Neptune blurs boundaries. We really want to utilize the Saturnian energy while we have it. I don't know about you, but I found Saturn entering Pisces the last couple years with like having Neptune in there for 14 years. Saturn really brought a lot to the surface that was hidden. Like sometimes, well, not sometimes, like Neptune literally creates us to see things with rose-colored glasses. Like we're not seeing things very clearly. And I find Saturn coming in those last few years really brought to the surface what was unclear. Let me know in the comments below if you thought that as well. This would have taken place in your second house of personal values and money and finances, but I also think just on a general scale that that was a thing. Anything that was kind of unknown, Saturn really did like bring a lot to the surface. So like front and center, and expose a lot. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Okay, so let's get into the Uranus and Gemini transit. So Uranus enters Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there until May 2033. You have Gemini in your fifth house of children, creativity, your hobbies, your interests, what you are passionate about, what you do for joy. If you like to play sports, that's in the fifth house. If you gamble, that's in the fifth house. If you, even addiction is in the fifth house, because remember, that's what we find joy in. Addiction is also in the 12th, but it is also tied to the fifth. So Gemini is a very quick energy. So having Uranus in Gemini, this is where we can be making really quick, sudden changes and choices and decisions that can get us into trouble. So we need to really try to ground this energy in as much as possible and try to just be aware of what is coming up so that we are not acting too quickly, sporadically, and yeah, just we just want to be mindful of that. So for you, Uranus in the fifth house can change. This is your house of children. And so, some of you may have children during this transit, or your children may go through, things on and off through this transit. You may change what you are passionate about or creative ventures, pursuits, and aspirations. This is also romance, romantic connections, not your like close personal relationships, because that's in the seventh, but like if you're dating, I find that shows up in the fifth. And so if you're somebody that is single, this may be a time, over the next decade where you're like, I just want to stay single. I'm just going to stay single and I'm going to date a bunch of different people, figure out what I want to do. Like for some of you, it can definitely show up that way. Um, but yeah, like I am going to post a separate video going more deeper into this Uranus and Gemini energy on a general scale, like Gemini rules communication. We're going to see huge advancements around AI, huge advancements around technology, and maybe you are incorporating some of these things into your life when it has to do what you do. Um, for fun when it has to do, I was going to say like when it has to do like on a day-to-day level, which yes is the case. Um, but even when it has to be, when it's like associated like with your children, like for some reason I just felt like homeschooling. Like I know right now if you wanted to homeschool children, like AI can create you a complete homeschool curriculum. That is just totally a thing. Like maybe you decide to homeschool your children over the next decade, and that would be a very clear representation of this energy, like literal representation. Um, so I'm sure, and I'm sure for some of you that will be a thing. AI is becoming so prominent where AI, just everything is available in AI. And so you may find that you're doing more with that with your creative projects. Um, and children. Yeah. And then again, romance and you I think you'll find too that maybe what you are interested in now and what you find passion in is going to completely change over the next decade. That's one thing Uranus does is completely shift and change our whole perception and direction in this area of life. So, I mean, you could like be a diehard football lover and play football, and then all of a sudden you're done. You don't want to do it anymore, or you completely shift to a different sport, or you know what I mean? Like, this is where we're just completely changing and trying new things. So let's get into Jupiter and Leo. Jupiter is going to enter Leo June 30th, 2026, and will be there until July 26th, 2027. So this is in your seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections. Remember, we have the South Node here. So whatever the South Node is activating in this area of life, Jupiter is going to amplify and expand. That's what Jupiter does. Yes, Jupiter is the planet of abundance and luck and the great benefic, but Jupiter can also bring too much of what we don't want. So, whatever that south node is activating, Jupiter is going to amplify that. And it could be not necessarily challenging, but we do have to watch for that. Sometimes with Jupiter in the seventh, you can have form a really beautiful relationship, especially with that south node there. Somebody may come back from the past, or you may meet somebody that you feel like you've known from some, past lifetime if you subscribe to that. Um, or you may feel like you want to date a bunch of different people. Again, Uranus in the fifth and then Jupiter in the seventh. Maybe a lot of you Aquarius risings will just be playing the field. I could totally see that. Or just meeting a lot of new people. Yeah, but this is where, yeah, Jupiter can bring in something really positive when it comes to your one-on-one connections. And again, this may not even have to do with you. This may have to do with your partner. Maybe your partner has a beautiful opportunity coming in with Jupiter in the seventh house and transiting your seventh house. All right, so let's talk about the Venus retrograde that we are having in Libra and Scorpio. October 3rd, Venus will station retrograde and then will station direct November 13th. 2026. So Venus is going to station retrograde at 8 degrees of Scorpio in your 10th house and then move back to 22 degrees of Libra in your ninth house. So there is something. And then remember, we have that Mercury retrograde in Scorpio the end of the year around the same time as well. So there's a lot in this area of life that you are reevaluating. And the 10th house rules career, your public reputation. And that ninth house is higher education, long distance travel, philosophy or belief systems. Maybe you're deciding to go back to school. Um, there could be something around your belief systems that's changing. There's definitely something that you're rethinking around work, but there's a lot of tension at this time because we have Pluto in the first house and Mars in the seventh, which is your first and seventh house axes. So this is like a relationship dynamic forming a T square to Venus. And Venus is already in Scorpio where she doesn't like to be. Venus is at fallen Scorpio. And then she's got both of the rulers of Scorpio, like applying pressure. So this is just a very unhappy energy all around. Now, Venus rules your ninth house and your fourth house, so it can also play out in those areas of life as well. Like maybe there's a lot of restriction or a lot of tension out around home and family at this time. That can be a thing. Or, of course, there could be a lot of tension and restriction at your career because Venus is in that 10th house, and both Mars and Pluto rule Scorpio and they're in opposition. This can also have to do with a relationship because it's your first and seventh. Whenever we're dealing with Mars and Pluto, the energy can become quite volatile. This is where we can be dealing with power and control dynamics. Obsessions, compulsions, manipulation, those type of relationship dynamics. So we do just want to be careful with that. Okay, Aquarius. Well, I hope this kind of gives you a good layout for the year ahead, and I hope it helps you navigate the energy for 2026. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you align with my energy and enjoy my content. And I will connect with you in the next one.